Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. My name is Joe, aka Joe the Wellness Curator, and I'm so glad for you to be back to the Obsidian Mindset podcast, where we are redefining what wellness means to you. So, this episode is a doozy, it's a new one. We have a new segment called Behind the Art. So, if you're new or you a veteran of Obsidian, you notice that every podcast cover is art from an artist. This season, we focused on having a different artist for every phase. So right now, this is phase 1 of season 2, called Being Present. And we've had the lovely Kheprisa Burrell, also known as Pre, do the art for phase 1, and it was amazing. I've seen some amazing things done. She took the feedback that I gave or the comments that I gave and just ran with it and made it her own. So that's exactly the kind of collaboration that I appreciated. She, especially the reproductive cover, that I just loved the way her mind just worked for that. And so the reason why I wanted this segment is because I wanted to get into the creator's mind. I think I wanted to learn more about what creativity looks like and how that intersects with a wellness journey, and how the art impacts someone's wellness and how someone's wellness impacts someone's art. And I think Pre did a great job with this interview, just telling us her story, her from beginning to end of how she started being a quote unquote creative and how she uses her art to heal. And it was right up my alley. So just a little bit about Pre. She is an emotional designer, and we'll get into a little bit about what emotional design means in the interview. But she's an emotional designer with a focus on UX, UI, brand identity, and illustration. Since 2019, her self-taught practices and professional endeavors have allowed her to focus on providing her talents towards Black and Brown audiences in various industries. She seeks to continue creating with feeling, purpose, and a sprinkle of imagination as long as the world revolves. So take a listen, take some notes. Even if you don't identify as a creative, there are some great gems and some great little tools that you could definitely take for yourself as well. I appreciated hearing her, and I'm excited to continue this segment, continuing to talk to the artists that produce such amazing podcast art and art in general, and just hearing more from the Black and Brown and other underserved community. Those are the artists that work on this podcast art. So without further ado, let's hear from Pre. So welcome, Pre. So excited to have you. Say hello to everyone.
Here. Hi, everybody.
So excited to have Pre on. She was the first artist that is handling season 1 or season 2, phase 1 of called Being Present, where we basically talk about being either present or what's going on presently within wellness. So what I'm doing this season is I want to talk to the artists, get more understanding of what they thought about it, and get the understanding of what wellness looks like to a creative or someone that's an artist. So she decided to join me on the first edition. So groundbreaking. So before I jump in, I'd just love to get to know a little bit about you. What does your art journey look like? Are you doing this for 20 years? Are you doing this for 2 days? Give us a little gist of what that looks like.
You know what? I actually was never looking into graphic design. I graduated from Howard University in 2015, and the job market was very dry. And I remember I'm from New York, and when I was in the city, it just felt like the job market wasn't really in my favor. And it also felt like cost of living was going up. So for, a 20 something fresh out of college, it kind of felt a little bit depressing. And so I think I, at the time, was going through a little bit of a dark night of the soul kind of thing. And that kind of encouraged me to pack my bags. I packed like one suitcase with me, and I spoke with my cousin about it, and he was like, yeah, come stay with me in Atlanta. I have a couch. And so I moved to Atlanta with one suitcase. After my birthday, I think I was like 27. And then I remembered I took a Photoshop course at Howard, just one. And I went back to YouTube shortly after moving to Atlanta and taught myself Photoshop again.
Wow.
And then from Photoshop, and that honestly, that helped me get through a lot of my depression at the time. It was just something for me to get into and have fun with. I just wanted to escape the feelings that I was feeling on a daily basis around that time. I mean, outside of having a good support system, it was just an activity for my brain to focus on when I wasn't, doing other things. But shortly after Photoshop was learned, I started doing like little side gigs, flyers, business cards, and it started picking up. People started coming to me, via word of mouth. And from there, it became logo stuff. And then I, would have friends who also are designers that would put me on with projects with them. I would start co-collaborating with them. At that point, I was like, all right, this is actually something. And I, became hungry about it, started like getting myself involved in any kind of thing possible. And so when I felt comfortable with Photoshop, I think that was maybe like, I don't know, like a couple of months that I was doing Photoshop and I felt comfortable enough to say like, all right, I'm a designer. But then came Illustrator. And so I self-taught myself Illustrator as well shortly after. And it kind of like looking back at it, knowing that like within the mind, depression really does like kind of mess with your memory. I
Mm.
don't really remember a lot about like actually how I got here, to be quite honest with you. It kind of just blurred into one big thing now and spiraled into like, I just decided to say like, all right, I'm a graphic designer. And then, clientele started coming in. And then that's, where I am now. I have been doing UX UI design as of last year. I took an intro to UX UI, which is basically user experience design, and it's paying attention to the needs of users. And my course was specifically directed towards women of color. And my projects that I worked on were specifically for Black and Brown people. So I'm finding that my design is kind of morphing into healing design.
Mm.
And I have mentors who recently spoke to me about that, and very, 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 very helpful, like good friends and mentors who basically were like, yeah, you are shaping out to be an emotional designer.
Mm.
And now I can say like I'm into emotional design. I know how to do many things, and it's just like, but it just happens that like design is like what's primarily on my plate now. I feel like a lot of creatives can relate to that. You know how to do a lot of things, and then like for one season, it's like this is the primary thing. But I mean, like next year it could be something totally different for me.
Mhm.
But right now it's like it's emotional design and it's focusing on that. So
I like that. So it seems like the wellness is not only for you, but for others and the healing for
yeah.
others. So how does wellness, how do you center yourself in
Um,
wellness for your art or for your creativity?
well, I mean, I start with myself, honestly. I can't start my day without meditating.
Mm.
In the morning, I do chakra meditation for about maybe 20 to 30 minutes before I start my day. Sometimes I'm not able to do it in the morning. If I'm not able to do it in the morning, I'll do it in the afternoon or the evening time. I don't try to make like my wellness routine seem performative. Like I'm very much that person that can be inconsistent sometimes. But when I am consistent, it's meditation in the morning for my chakras. It's drinking a lot of water throughout the day. It's I have like intentions written, on my wall for me to read on the days that I feel extremely like maybe off balance or just not like on point with myself. But everything I do for like my body, like I do yoga. If I'm not doing yoga, there's a little bit of, high intensity hit training going on there, like for me to just stay motivated. I'm very aware of the fact that, we live in a COVID world now. So a lot of stuff that I do is actually at home.
Mhm.
Um, and I am, I'm still working on personal goals here in Atlanta. So it's just like I work around like not feeling so stifled when goals are taking a little bit too long for me
Mhm.
by using wellness as well. I just so happens like I live right next to like a reservoir and basically a nature reserve. They're like 5 minutes down the
Ooh.
street from my house. So like sometimes on weekends I'll just go to the nature reserve and I'll walk around or I'll meditate there. Um, I'm also very intentional about my rest. I do not feel guilty about resting anymore. I think the pandemic helped me with that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I also like when it comes to, being a business person and then also just like trying to have the healthy work-life balance. D&D is a thing on my phone for
Talk
real. Like
about
I
it.
do not answer after a certain time. Um, I let clients know, I can't answer past this time because I have to decompress. I'm the type of person that has to decompress.
Mm-hmm.
But by eating right and taking care of my breath work and taking care of like my body, my energy, the herbs and stuff that I put into my body, I'm able to focus on design in a way where it's like I'm not rushing. And I think a lot of people think of designs as, just a robot who puts shapes and colors and lines and placement all together to meet a deadline and that's it. And it's way more than that. There's a human behind it. And I think I'm a great reminder of that. Like I just like to
Yes.
nudge people if they don't, necessarily understand. Like I go about it differently. I'm very intentional with the process, but what I put into my body really shows through like how I am able to present like my entire process. So
I love
that's
that.
how it works for me. Yeah.
Oh man, so much for the first off, D&D is self-care. So that
Yeah.
first and
Yeah.
foremost. I just love all of the things you said. And I'm curious as to what would you say your inspiration is, or where do you draw your inspiration from when you're doing art or being creative?
That's a great question. It's interesting. I'd say like my inner child is probably my
Mhm.
inspiration because in general it takes a lot for me to be inspired by somebody. Like it's easy for me to say, oh, I like what that person did there. But for me to say, oh, I'm inspired by this person, it takes a lot. And I think it's because like I have this thing with like just making sure that I'm authentic and I just am like a quote unquote one of one. I guess I don't know. I just
Right.
and like
Renaissance
I'm
creative.
kind of in my own head a lot too. So like yeah, like I'm kind of in my own world a lot. Like you could ask my friends in general, like I be listening, but I don't be listening. And it's like I that's kind of like my perspective and where I come from. So it's not to be like purposely like, oh, I'm not inspired by anybody. It's that I think I just try and tap into what my inner child would want. Um, but no, also just very much so like I listen to what my clients say they want, but I also take into account that I'm a very abstract thinker and I always try to throw things into my designs that might like shock a client, but at
Mm.
the same time I think that they might actually be able to like it. Um I mean, I think it's like a game of give and take. Like you obviously want to listen to the instructions that you're given by, a client, of course, but to inspire someone, I think is just doing something you've never done before and just giving it a shot. And in my inner child, when I was younger, I always did that. I never thought things that like I guess a child of my age should be thinking. I would always say something random or always do something random and I never thought anything of it. So that's my inspiration.
I love
Little
it.
me.
Little old me. I loved your art that you presented to us for the
Thank
podcast
you.
covers. We've got a lot of compliments about the second episode for reproductive health.
Oh, really great.
So definitely, was any of the ones that you presented, anything that comes to mind, anything inspiration? That one specifically, definitely love that design. If anything comes to mind when you were creating that, I would love to know your thoughts about what you've done so far for us, Obsidian.
You know, well, obviously I took into account you guys' notes
Mhm.
about texture and being abstract. Um and I kind of combined it with just the I guess the human language of it all. Like I just think sometimes people forget that we all are human, and parts of the reproductive system, it is biology, but it's also stuff that like we should know about. I
Mm-hmm.
think for that specific episode, it kind of took me back to a place where, as a Black woman, you're not really taught to like know a lot about your body,
Mm-hmm.
specifically as a Black woman. And then growing up in the kind of school system that I grew up in New York, biology and like, the sexual reproduction system and all that stuff is very, it's taught to us very dry
Mm-hmm.
and very surface based. And I just remember, sometimes words will pop in my head when I'm doing things. So I just kept thinking about like detail and being intricate and thinking about like all of the little pieces, all of the little organs that come together to make this one beautiful thing that can do so many things.
Mm.
While, also just like paying, I don't know, I guess honor to myself and like all the other Black kids in school who just weren't really given the chance to know enough about like our bodies. It just very much was a time where it's like, as a girl, you were taught that, basically be safe when you're having sex, and because if not, you get pregnant. And that
Mm-hmm.
was pretty much what they taught,
That was
like that was why we were taught those things in those courses, but it wasn't like, all right, and this week we're going to just focus on the vulva, and look at that. So I think I was just thinking about humanity and how it can really be looked at through a different lens. Yeah.
I like that. And also, based off what you just said, it's less because a piece of that kind of sounds like fear, because even like you're just going to get pregnant. But I see you taking it as the beauty and less of the structure and the, I don't want to say anatomy, but the words and
like the
specific
standardized
definitions.
text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
The
fill in the
stuff we
bubble. Like,
saw, exactly. The stuff we
let's
saw in the
think
textbooks.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay, so two more questions. What would you, when you, so one of our themes for this season is the we and wellness. So I'd love to know what you think about when you hear we and wellness. What comes to mind?
I would say that I would want to say that wellness, it's not a gimmick, number one. And when you put the we in it, you have to understand that everyone's at a different journey in their life, and not everyone's wellness is going to look the same. And not everyone's practices are going to look the same. And I think we live in a very critical world right now where everyone thinks that it's step one, step two, step three. And in reality, for some people, it's like step four, step three, step two, and then step one. And I think that the we in wellness phrase makes me go to a place of empathy, because I know a lot of people are going through a lot of things right now, and they do their best, to put their wellness first. And just because they're not able to do the meditation or, what's considered to be wellness, for most people does not mean that they're not trying.
Right.
And it doesn't make anybody better than the next person because they're able to have, more resources or less. And I think it's best for people to understand that it's possible for all of us to share our resources, rather than like point the finger and say, well, so and so can't do this, so she can't be on my team or he can't be on my team. Um, Time, everyone does not have the same amount of time. They do have the 24 hours, but they don't have the same amount of time. And it's just like, if someone's only able to give 10 minutes of their time to, just complete silence versus, another person may be able to put in an hour. It's like, it's the same exact intention though.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, we in wellness really, it centers around intention. I don't think that people need to feel that they're alone because they can't have the same amount of resource towards what they think or what they're seeing wellness is. Because like I said, it's very commercialized now, so that
Mhm.
people feel bad about, even like a lot of people feel very insecure because they don't see themselves living like that wellness life and yeah, what it looks like.
Yep.
And so I think it is up to us, the we, to be able to get to a point where it's just wellness is universal and it's what you make it, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's we all have some skin in the game
Yeah,
to get this done.
absolutely.
I think one thing I want to touch on before I go to the next question is
Yeah.
I'm really curious about the emotional, I believe you call it the emotional art or emotional art,
Emotional design. Mm-hmm.
emotional design.
Mm-hmm.
So based off of that, what do you, anyone that you present your art to, especially Black and brown people, what do you want them to take away, or what do you want to resonate within them when they see your art?
Um, you know what? I would say I would want them to feel seen,
Mhm,
um, and I would want them to feel represented in, whatever it is I'm presenting towards them.
mhm,
Um, I often ask, sometimes I ask my clients, like, what their vision is, but then I go deeper and I'm like, but like, what actually inspired you? And just like, don't cut corners. Tell me the story behind it.
mhm.
Because whatever it is that I end up presenting to them, I try to make sure that they get those those little details included within whatever it is they're receiving, so that whenever it is they look at the final product, they're like, this is, coming from a deeper place, and I feel seen, I feel happy with this because this is an inspiration on multiple levels. um and then I almost sometimes I pray over my work, to be honest. Sometimes I'm my friends will tell you I'm a very spiritual person, but I start, intention before I even begin touching the keys, on my computer to be able to do certain things. Like, I'll definitely set the intention of making sure that whatever it is I'm putting out there, it's felt and it's understood. Um, and then I'm always just making sure that I'm grounded in what it is the person wants to see, but also what I feel like their future self would want to see,
Ooh,
because I don't want it to just feel like a one-time thing. I want it to be something they can go back to and have like a longevity towards
yeah.
feeling connected to. So yeah, I don't know if if I did said
No,
that right, but yeah.
no, that was good.
Okay.
I was getting, it's timeless and legacy are the two words that came
Yeah.
to mind when I heard that. So I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
No
Um,
problem.
and I guess one of the last questions I have is, what are your advice to other creators or artists, especially Black and brown
Mhm.
people, regarding their wellness, regarding if they feel like they're kind of stuck in this structure that they might not see themselves in?
Yeah.
What do you think? What was your advice to them?
I would say don't worry about the structure. I would say take the risks. I would definitely say create their own blueprint. Take the road less traveled. It's harder for sure, but it's a road, and you get to make it your own. You get to pave it. You get to go down your own direction, and you get to become your authentic self. You find that you're not trying to be like anyone else but yourself, and I think once you get there, it's like, the sky isn't even the limit anymore. There is no limit. So I would say definitely, don't start with the box. And yeah, like, the general consensus of like design industry advice is always great. It's always good to listen to articles and other resources you see on Google, listening to other designers and all that stuff. But I think listening to your inner self is like probably the most important advice that I could give. Yeah,
Love that.
for sure.
Okay, I think the last piece I always ask is either related to your wellness, related to your inspiration. Are there any books, podcasts, art that you'd recommend people checking it out?
That's a good question. It's crazy. I'm not even really, I used to be a book reader when I was younger, but now it's like the
Times.
occasional podcast. Yeah, it's the occasional podcast or but I mean, one of my all-time favorite books is it's definitely The Alchemist that you can't go wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say for things that I listen to right now, I actually listen to a lot of like murder mysteries. It's very, very random.
It's
But
not.
there's a really good podcast called Rotten Mango. And
Oh.
yeah, and it's about a whole bunch of different kind of like real life like murder cases and mysteries. And it's very interesting to hear about like how great people's lives were, how inspired people were before unfortunately like their life is cut short. But those are the kind of like random things that I get into when like while I'm designing, and I'm just like, wow, that's unfortunate. I gotta keep going because that can't happen. Like
That's
it's
real.
very, very, very real. But um I'm telling you, I do not have like much. I literally
No, that was perfect. That's all if you loved it, you like it, I love it. Oh man, thank you, Pri, so much. If there's any other advice, gems that you want to drop, feel free. If there's anything that you're working on, you want to tell people about, you can feel free as well, to let them know where to find you as well.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Right now, I'm working on a UX UI case study with a very good friend of mine who is he's a psychology major, but he's also an astrologist and a tarot card reader. And we're actually working on a project that has to do with healing grief with astrology using the exact points on your birth chart. So we actually did a little bit of research work this past weekend, but I'll be adding it onto my portfolio soon. So design recruiters, keep your eye out on that.
Wink.
Otherwise, right. Otherwise, I'm still working on logo work, brand identity work. I've been doing a lot of websites recently, just revamps, rebuilds, or starting from scratch. And you can find me on Instagram at Suprima. That's with 2 I's, Supriima. Same thing on Twitter. And I'm not really active on socials like that, but you can catch me. You can catch me on there. And yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you.
Definitely a great. It was a vibe. It started
Yeah.
strong. And I'll definitely link you everywhere to make sure that you get the eyes looked at and find some design.
Oh, I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. And like I like to say, thank you for picking you today.